Good morning, everyone. I am Dr. Charu Agarwal from AKGEC Engineering College. I am working as an associate professor in the Department of Computer Science and Engineering. Today, I am going to cover a topic, the cost estimation of the project, which is the part of the unit 4 of this subject. In my previous lecture, I discussed about the financial analysis, the financial feasibility. What are the major steps which are involved in the financial feasibility of the project? We saw that the financial feasibility, doing the right financial feasibility is very important, because based on that, we will actually find out, or we actually decide that whether we go for that project or not. So for that, we actually need to find out what are the components which are the part of the cost of the project, and how we estimate those components for the total find out the total cost of the project. Okay, so to find out this, we need to estimate all expenses which are incurred before the commercialization of the project. What does this mean, that before the commercialization of the project? Like from the inception of the idea till the completion of the project. Okay, so the total costs which are involved into the various life cycle, into the various phases of the life cycle of the project, we need to estimate that cost. Okay, so that actually come to the, or as the total expenses incurred for the commercialization of the project. Okay, now we need to find out that what are the various expenses which are involved actually, which lead to the total commercialization of the project. So in this, in my previous lecture, there are the two things are basically involved. One is the finding out or estimating the fixed investments, and second is the working capital. So what actually this involved in that capital investment and all the recurring expenses. Okay, capital investments means whatever be the investment in terms of the money we need to find out, and all the recurring expenses. Recurring expenses means, what is the meaning of this recurring word? Recurring word means there which are happening again and again. Okay, at the same time duration. Like for example, salary. We need to pay the salary to the employees each and every month. So they are the recurring expenses which are happening again and again. Okay, after a fixed time slot. So they are all the recurring expenses. Like we need to pay the salary to the employees in each and every month, depending upon the salary structure. We need to pay the interest to the bank each and every month. So these all are the recurring expenses जो कि हमें बार बार करने होते हैं. Okay, so it includes the capital investment. We need to estimate the capital investment which is involved, and also it includes the recurring expenses. Okay, which are all incurred before the completion of the project, or before the project is handed over for the operation. Like we saw that now our project is full, now all the plant is set up, now we go for the production of the product. So before that, whatever be the cost is involved, we need to estimate that cost. The various component of cost of project as per the guidelines of the various financing and appraising authority that we discuss one by one here. The one is the very important one is which is the initial one, land and site development. Okay, see, whenever in our mind we have any idea, so to develop that idea, to make that idea into operational one, what we need? We need a site, or we need a land in which we actually want to develop that project. Okay, so what we have, the land is, so the first investment is the land and site development. We need to have the land, we need to purchase the land, or we need to take the land on rent or on lease, depending upon the circumstances. Okay, so land and site development include all the expenses which are incurred on the acquisition of land and making it suitable for the implementation of the project. Okay, it's not like that we just purchase the land, we just acquired the land and paid the money. Okay, along with that, we need to make that suitable so that we can implement our project. See, it's known that acquisition of land is the first point, that we need to acquire the land, we need to have the land, and only after that we can implement our project. Okay, so land is acquisition of land. Site development is means we are converting that land into a suitable form so that the actual project can be implemented on that. Okay, so what are the various sub components in that? The first is the purchase price of land. Okay, we need to find out that what is the amount of money we need to pay to purchase that land. Okay, now legal and registration charges we need to pay. Okay, now to purchase that land and to convert that land into the commercial one, we need to pay the legal and commercial charges also. Now, after acquisition of the land, we need to make it suitable so that our project is get implemented on that land. So, for that, it may be possible that we need to label that land. It may be possible that the land is not on equal level. Okay, so we need to hire some, or we need to take on rent some of the machineries that make the land in a smooth land, or convert the land into a smooth one. So we need to apply the labeling of land. Then laying of internal and external and approach roads. Okay, now after having land, after labeling the land to make and making it suitable, we also need to have the roads, because otherwise roads we can't reach to that land. You can see in your surroundings that there are the number of the factories, there are number of the development plants are there which are outside the city. Okay, where are you can see that the roads are intentionally developed. Okay, so for that land we need to have the approachable lanes, approachable roads also, because of through that roads we can approach to that land, whether it's like the trucks to deliver the raw material or something, or to take up the finished product from that land to the market. Okay, so we need to have the approachable roads also. We need to have the boundary wall or fencing of land. We need to do this. Okay, along with that, we need to have the gate and the site office. We need to have the tube well and electrification for the project implementation, or other expenses of the similar nature we need to consider here. Okay. So, for land and site development, we have the purchase price of land. We need to find out the purchase price of land. What are the charges involved in the legal and registration process? What are the expenses we need to incur for the labeling of land, for laying of the internal and approachable roads, for making the boundary wall and fencing of the land, then gates and site office, tube well and electrification purpose expenses. So, all these expenses come under the category of the land and site development. The next is the construction cost. Next point which is involved is the construction cost. This cost includes expenses which are incurred on the construction of the factory or non-factory buildings of all nature, including the RCC, PCC, etc. Okay, so first point is that we acquire the land and we make the land suitable so that it will be used for the implementation purpose. Okay, after that, after having the fencing of the land, approachable roads and all, we need to now moving towards the construction of the building. Okay, so in this there are the two kinds of the buildings that we need to develop. One is the factory building and the other we categorize into the non-factory building. Now, what are the different buildings that come under the factory buildings? They are the production shed, boiler house, transformer room, generator room, workshop, laboratory, etc. So, all these are the factory buildings. Non-factory buildings include like warehouses, stores, security houses, workers' restroom, parking area in which the people park their vehicles or the trucks and all, timing office, excise room, administrative block may be there, essential quarters for the workers, canteen is very important here. So, these are the non-factory building. These are come under the category of the factory building and these come under the category of the non-factory building. Okay. So, accordingly, whatever be the requirement of your project, based on that, you can build the various buildings in any of the category. So, after having the construction cost, we go for the plant and machinery cost. Okay. So, that's the main third point which involved a huge investment actually. Okay, after having the land and and after construction of the building, we now need to develop the plant and we need to purchase the machinery for that. So this is generally the biggest cost in the manufacturing projects. Sir, for the service industry, we need not to purchase the machinery. We need not to develop the plant. But for the manufacturing projects, this is a head which incur a huge amount of investment. It comprises the overall cost of the imported and indigenous machinery, including its erection and foundation costs. See, here are the two words are involved, imported and indigenous. Many of the students, they don't know about the meaning of the indigenous. Okay, imported machinery means the machinery which we actually purchased from outside of India. Okay, so they are imported to our country. So they come under the category of the imported machinery. Okay, indigenous machinery means the machinery that actually made or that actually built up within the country. So we need not to import those machines. Okay, jo ki the machines which is locally made in your country, they all come under the category of the indigenous machinery. Okay, so here the purchasing of the machinery involved both type of the machinery. It's not like we are not actually calculating the cost of the machinery that we purchased from our country only. Okay, it's not like that. So we need to consider the cost of both kind of the machinery, whether it is imported from the other country or whether it is made from you purchase from your country only. Okay, so all type of the cost of that, from the erection to the foundation of that cost, we need to consider that cost. So in this basically head, the following costs are involved. Basic cost of the equipment, what is that? Next is the excise, custom duty or the sale tax, because if you are purchasing any machinery from outside of India, means you are importing any machinery, that includes the excise of the custom duty also. Okay, and you need to have the pay the sale tax also, depending upon sale tax. Now in today's scenario we have the GST also, so based on that you need to pay. Then you also need to incur the or calculate the transshipment cost from the vendor to the site, and insurance during the transportation also you need to consider. After that you need to consider also the erection and the foundation cost and the piping cost also. Okay, so under the plant and machinery head, you need to have all the costs which are incurred to acquire the machinery, to purchase the machinery, to register the machinery, and for the cost involved in the shipment of that machinery. Okay, and developing and planting those machinery onto the site and developing the connections between all those machines. Okay, so this is the cost involved in the plant and machinery. Next head is the technical know-how. Technical know-how means whether generated or transferred technology has its own cost. Okay, so this technical know-how cost includes basic cost of technology development or whether you purchase this. Then based on the technology that you had purchased or have, you need to train your employees also. Okay, and you need to pay the royalty to that also. Okay, so it may be possible that you purchase the machinery in which some technology is involved. Okay, that the people you are having in your staff, they don't know actually how to operate on those machines. Okay, so in that case you need to train your employees. Suppose you purchase a machinery from ABC company, okay, and you don't know actually that how to operate that machine. Then what happens that you need to call the persons from ABC company. Those persons came here on site also, and you can go their site also, and they train your employees. Okay, so if in this type of scenario any of the cost is involved, so that comes under the category of the technical know-how, that how we actually need to be operate the technology. Okay, now the next is the utilities. The cost involved in case of the, what is the cost involved in the utility? Utilities are the common facilities used for various plants of the same organization. Okay, this is very important, that what are the utilities? Utilities are those which can be used for the many purpose. Okay, they are the common facilities which are used for various plants of the same organization. In a same organization, we can have the number of the plants. So these are the facilities which are used by more than one plant in your organization. So this seems similar to the plant and machinery cost, but the difference lies in the fact that utilities are used for various plants, whereas plant and machinery is for individual plant. Okay, so we developed one plant with their machinery, so it may be possible in your organization that you have the number of the plants. Okay, so some facilities are there which can be used by more than one plant. Okay, like the boiler, compressor, generator, transformer, underground overhead water tank, okay, effluent treatment plant. Okay, so they are the number of the things which can be used by more than one facility, more than one plant. So these are come under the utilities, and we also need to find out the costs which are incurred in the development of these kind of the utilities, because these are also important. Okay, so I hope you are getting the idea or a brief dimensions that what are the different type of the costs involved in the project estimation. Now the next component is the miscellaneous fixed assets. Okay, these are the various costs which are included in the cost which we discussed just above. So they are termed miscellaneous fixed assets also, like the cost involved in the furniture or the fixtures, like what happened till now. We acquired the land, we constructed the land, based on that we purchased the machinery also, we developed the plant also, okay, the various utilities also. Now within the structure, what you need to have the furniture and fixtures, because we are not able to sit without the table and chair. Okay, so we need to, for working, we need to have the furniture. Okay, to keep our files also, we need the wardrobes also. Okay, so furnitures. Now for doing the work, we need the computer, fax, printers, and the various accessories involved in that. Now to move from one place to the other, we also need to have the vehicles along with the way bridges. So these are the miscellaneous fixed assets also. So you consider this in the fixed asset, like land, site and plant development, they all are the fixed assets. So similarly, purchasing the furniture, purchasing the computers, accessories, vehicles, they also come under the fixed assets. Now the next is preliminary expenses. Now the point is, what does the preliminary expenses means? At the start or at the conceptualization point of the project, you need to do some kind of the expenses. Means some kind of the expenses means you need to do some market analysis of your idea, that in the market, that whether what other competitors are there, what are their prices, what are the government restrictions, what are their different legal laws that you need to consider. Okay, so in doing all these things, what actually happened, that the expenses are involved. So you need to consider those expenses also. So this kind of preliminary expenses include market survey expenses. They include public issue expenses and interest during the implementation. It may be possible that at the very first point, at the seed, you can say, of the project, you actually taken some kind of the loan from the other sources. Okay, so what they expect, they expect a interest on recurring basis from you. Okay, so you know that till now your project is not in the commercialization form. Okay, not in the completion form, but to complete that project you need money, and for that money you need to pay the interest. Okay, so these are, you can consider as the preliminary expenses for your company. Okay, so you need to consider these expenses also for your company. Now the next one is the pre-operative expenses. What is the meaning of this pre-operative expenses? Means the expenses which are involved in the operation of the project before actually commercialization or the completion of the project. Suppose from the starting point till the termination point, suppose you hire like 100 employees which actually help you in the development of the project. Now it's like the project is not completed, but you need to pay the salary to those employees. Okay, so these you can say as the pre-operative expenses, operational expenses you can say. Pre means before the completion of the project. So these are come under the category of the pre-operative expenses. So these include the normal expenses such as the salary, rent incurred by an enterprise prior to commercialization production. So this also include like traveling expenses, maybe you consider company formation expenses, commissioning expenses, trial run costs, etc. So there are the number of the pre-operative expenses are also involved in that. Okay, you can say that these are the recurring expenses also, but like the salary you need to pay each and every month, rent you need to pay each and every month, but you can consider as them also as the pre-operative expenses, means before the commercialization of the product you are doing such kind of the expenses. Next is the term is contingency. Maybe you heard this word earlier also, contingency. Contingency is the cushion fund. Okay, you kept for some foreseen over expenditures or some unforeseen expenses. Okay, means some amount of the money you kept in security, like. Okay, so whenever you face any kind of the you can say expenses, maybe you know those expenses that may be possible in future, or you may don't know about those expenses, so you take up some amount of fund like for the small expenses you can say, so that come under the category of the contingency. Next we have the margin money for working capital. Margin money for working capital means working capital generally financed through short-term sources of the finance. So we kept a margin money for working capital, means ki, like for working capital, suppose we need like 1 lakh rupees for each and every day. Okay, but we just kept in our security like some amount of the money, so that if we face any time like short of fund, then we can take the money from this margin money into the for the operational purpose. Okay, so that your day-to-day operation will not get affected. Okay, so that is the current you can consider as the margin money that you consider for the working capital. Okay, so for these are the different actually the components of cost of the project and is in its estimations also along with the working capital. So to find out the total cost of the project, we need to find out the two things. One is the fixed investment and one is the how much amount we need for the working capital in the total lifespan of the project life cycle. From the start till the completion or till the commercialization of the project, what amount of money we need to incur, or we need to calculate, or we need to estimate, because these are the various important you can say the points in which actually on which the actually depends on these heads the cost of the overall project. So let's have a small brief have the heads. Like one, we need to have the land and site development cost, that we need to find out purchase land, legal restriction and all. Second is we need to find out the cost, or we need to estimate the cost which is involved in the construction of the buildings, like for factory building and for the non-factory building, whatever be the things involved in you. So we have the land now and the constructed building. After that we need to develop the plant. For developing the plant, we need to have the machinery, whether it is the indigenous or the imported machinery. You need to hire those machinery and you need to develop the whole plant. Okay, you need to develop the connections between those machinery and you need to develop the whole plant, like from where the raw material come into the machinery, from that machinery where the next product, mid product, unfinished project you can say move to the other machinery, and one by one to all phases. So you need to make out all this structure during this plant and machinery, and you need to find out the cost which are involved in this. Okay, Then we have the technical know-how, that if any technology is involved in that, we need to pay the royalty, and we need to find out the training, we need to find out the cost which is involved in the training of the employees. Then we also need to estimate the total cost involved in the utility of the project, like for the development of the boiler, compressor, generator, transformer, etc. We need to also calculate the miscellaneous fixed assets, the preliminary expenses which are involved, pre-operative expenses which are involved, contingency money which is involved, and we need to have some margin money for the working capital. Okay, so student, these are all the components of which are involved in the cost of the project, and we need to make a good estimation of this, because it ultimately helps you in making the decision whether you go for that project or not. Okay, so that's all about this today's lecture. Thank you, students. Thank you so much.